I love gaming, an obvious statement that is backed up by the collection of games I have gathered over the years and the time invested on them. Amusingly enough, I could say that I spend more time gaming rather than working on video projects I have on my mind about said games. But this one is going to have focus on my preference of games, which shouldn't be a secret if you glance over the title of this video. Video games are an unique form of entertainment compared to movies, magazines or music, in that they are interactive. All sorts of action that is portrayed in the latter three is not done by backseating and witnessing it playing. You are the player. It's for this reason alone I find gameplay important in games that I play, and I don't see reason to care or invest interest on games that are particularly story heavy. I don't buy games to be spectator, I buy them to be the player. Every person is different, so every game has their own share of fans, and I can safely say despite the collection of games, there's only a handful I can say being all-time favorite, the reason being due to lack of gameplay. I'm emphasizing that they are not bad games, but they are ideally not suited to me. And if there should be a story in video game, story should be interactive, not a play where player is just an actor taking their role. There's argument to be made about John Carmack's words about how a story in a game is like a story in a porn movie. It's expected to be there, but it's not that important. He was right. The sad case is that games change to be more story heavy, that the story itself carries the game, rather than other way around. Strip away story of Spec Ops The Line, Alan Wake or Dead Space, and you're left with an all-round average third-person shooters, with variation of visuals and themes. But strip away story from, say, State of Decay, Hitman or Resident Evil, and you're left with engaging gameplay, provided the player has interest in immersive jumpy survival, stealthy assassination, or action-heavy survival shooter experience.
Yes! Double kill, holy...
The point being made here is that an average game can be carried by story alone, but a good gameplay can differentiate games enough that the story hardly matters in those games. To bring up something out of myself, I am not good with video game stories at all, or investing much time into them, if I do end up playing games that have a story focus on it one way or another. Usually the focus diverges on the visuals or any addictive gameplay it can provide, and in few cases of having played games with a heavy story focus, I have gone my way to intentionally break the game and check out if anything amusing might happen that way. On the other hand, while I dare to say I am willing to give a shot to every genre there is, I have a bias against real-time strategy and isometric games. It feels weird, since most of the games on that category are some of that feature most gameplay that there can be, but I have hard time getting into those games due to lack of understanding good tactics, and also weird disconnection of moving characters by pointing and clicking, rather than moving with the press of a button. That said, I'm slowly working myself to adjust on it, thanks to few all-time favorites of mine. Enjoying video games, now that's a rare feat. Thankfully, there has been few games that strikes heavy interest that can be summed up by few bullet points. Story is non-linear and unrestrictive. Gameplay works as means to make up the story, and the gameplay is easy to pick up, hard to master. Arguably, that could describe either fighting games or sandbox games, but I'm not fond of all games of those genre, so let me say out these few. Kenshi, bought it about 2 years ago, was extremely taken back due to being isometric game with lot of characters to control. Few years later, I end up playing this actively now, and it's starting to grow on me as one of the best games ever to exist, providing surreal world with open-ended gameplay with no linear goal. Mount & Blade Warband, A sandbox game simulating fictional medieval land of Calradia, with player character either capable of assisting one nation to rule over others or become independent ruler. The gameplay consists of action with tactics to command buttload of troops. Most strategy games let you only see troops marching wherever you say them to go, but here you take direct control, which is quite more immersive and I dare say more fun. State of Decay, a game that I have to give shoutout to the Snaker for doing a video about it ages ago. It's the closest open-ended Walking Dead style zombie game to exist. Rough around the edges, not particularly perfect by any means, but it feels the zombie craving other zombie games cannot pull off. I guess one could say I'm a hypocrite, but few story-heavy games that caught my interest I can only count on one hand. And in order it is Final Fantasy X, Planescape Torment and Disco Elysium. Planescape Torment is one of those RPGs where narrative, characters and heavy dialogue just works, thanks to being text to read about and not to be disturbed by audio reading it for me, letting me heavily to get invested to it. Disco Elysium took my interest in the moment a failure of skill check wasn't typical act of not gaining access to content, but rather, failure itself brought up new content.
One moment you're running like the wind, then you've suddenly turned around and are giving him the finger.
Final Fantasy X, out of every other Final Fantasy game, even to 12 that I argue is superior due to gameplay, wins me over due to its fairly easier to get story than its predecessors or successors. And thus, I conclude this video about gameplay over story. I believe a true test of time for a game is always going to be gameplay, no matter how prevalent story ever comes to gaming. Thank you for watching this video. If you want to support this channel, you can give me a coffee through link in description. Have a nice day.